You're listening to Debating Metal. I'm your host, Kenneth Dean, the Dean of Metal, and my co-host is Chris Kaye. Following our most recent episode where we did Alice in Chains' greatest hits, we're sticking around the Pacific Northwest area, and while this band that we're going to discuss today predates the Seattle grunge scene, they are still no less important to its history. Today, we give you Metal Church's greatest hits.
While the band technically formed in San Francisco, California in 1980, it wasn't until 1983 when Kurt Vanderhoof enlisted vocalist David Wayne and drummer extraordinaire Kirk Harrington that the band released their demo titled Four Hymns that Metal Church would officially take shape. 40 years later, the band is still committed to releasing new music and expect to have a new album out by the fall of this year.
So Chris and I will choose 15 songs each from their 12-album discography. Any songs duplicated automatically make the list. Whichever songs were not, we'll debate to see which ones make the final cut. Then we'll arrange them in concert setlist order for the ultimate Metal Church greatest hits. So Chris, we haven't talked much about Metal Church, and I know that a lot of people like Metal Church, but Metal Church is not someone that's like, not a group that's going to be on someone's top 20 list every single time. But I have known them since their first album was released on Elektra, not when they self-released it. So I think it was 1987 or something like that, or 86. How did you kind of get into Metal Church, if you've gotten into any of it at all?
I would say VH1 classic music videos, most of that being from probably Blessing in Disguise and Human Factor kind of time period. Mike Howe was definitely my Metal Church singer, the one that I saw and recognized the most. I really didn't listen to a whole lot of them during the Ronnie Monroe era, and then obviously the earlier stuff was kind of lost on me for the most part, but I do remember seeing some stuff about the first album on some of those old, VH1 classic shows and maybe some stuff on MTV. But for the most part, I would say this is one band that's kind of gone under the radar for me. And I think most of it's due to they just have so much upheaval in their lineup that it was hard for me to step in at one point and say oh, well, I really like this band because every time I heard them, they sounded a little different.
Right. I get that. And just to make a correction, the debut album from them was reissued in 1985 by Elektra Records. So that's about, okay. I probably got into them around 86. But I got into them sort of by reading, back in the day, when I was growing up, they had magazines that you had to go to a magazine shop to go buy, so, I had to scrounge up whatever $2 or $3 I might have had and, go to the store and slap down, whatever money it cost, $100.50 or whatever it was. And I would buy Circus Magazine, Hit Parader Magazine, sometimes Cream if they had a Kiss cover on it. But it was mostly Circus and Hit Parader that had mostly metal. And then came Metal Edge, so I would get that one too.
Hey, I had a subscription to Heavy Metal Magazine.
That one I never got into. But so that's how I got into Metal Church, seeing the ads and, then of course they were on the same label as Metallica. And so there was advertisements and all that stuff. But I really, really dug the first album. The second album came out and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I didn't have a problem with David Wayne as a singer. But then the next thing I see, they take a couple years break, I think it was, and release Blessing in Disguise. And it's a different singer, different voice altogether. And even the kind of the style in which they were playing was a little different. And it was, I don't know if it was better at the time for me, but it was different, and they had that single for Badlands that's on MTV all the time. So it was quite different, but I always stuck with them. I listened to their stuff. I was excited when the new albums would come out, but they kind of lost me after the Human Factor. And I'm ashamed to admit this, but I gave up on the band to some degree. I gave up on them when they released Hanging in the Balance. And after literally listening to it yesterday and today, I say to myself, wow, I missed out on this. I mean, I have the CD in my collection, but I never listened to it. And I say I missed out on it because when I started listening to it, I'm like, there's some pretty decent songs on here, if you're a Metal Church fan. And so I was kind of disappointed in myself. But then again, the cover is so bad.
Yeah, it would turn off a lot of people.
I mean, it's so bad. It's one of the worst covers. And it's not one of those where it's a cover that is like piecemealed together, like the early Accept cover, or just such a lame picture of like Aerosmith from their first album. Nothing that, like that. It was worse because it was actually a chosen picture that they put on there, or actually a drawing, a cartoon. And I think that's what really turned me off to it. It's got this cartoon of a fat, overweight person.
It's even more than that. She's like a mutant.
She's mutant. She's got spiked hair, and it's just really weird. And to me, the music inside does not represent anything that the cover is trying to show. So it turned me off. I was like, what is this? Are they turning into a joke at this point? I knew they had already been dumped by Sony Music at that point, because they got dropped by Elektra, then they got picked up by Sony. They released The Human Factor, and then they got dropped after that because Human Factor went nowhere, even though that's a pretty good album. I was just like totally surprised by that. And so I kind of dropped off they dropped off my radar at that point, and I was like, whatever. But then, I picked up on, they released albums in the 2000s. I said, let me check this out. And some of them were pretty good. They weren't horrible, but they were decent, and they were recorded well. And I'm not talking about like that what Kurt Vanderhoof describes as Disasterpiece, the Masterpiece album with the reunion with David Wayne. But it was, the albums with Ronnie Monroe were actually recorded very well. They sound great. The songs were decent, and they got better as time went along. But then Ronnie left, and then Mike Howe came back, and they made some pretty good albums with Mike. So that's pretty cool. And unfortunately, Mike passed away a couple years ago by his own hand, and that's sad in its way. And you and I talked about that, so we don't need to talk about it anymore. But in fact, today, as we are recording this, they announced that they have a new singer named Mark Lopez, and he is taking over vocal duties for Metal Church, and they will be putting together a new album that should come out later this year. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, that we were just talking about this. In fact, like earlier today, we kind of mentioned, boning up on some of the timeline and stuff like that. Wikipedia isn't always the best source for all information, but it does have some good stuff on bands as far as, timeline, etc. And you always got to fact check all that stuff. But at the same time, we looked at it earlier today and it was there. And then this afternoon, the timeline's gone because I guess they're working on it. So.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get into this Metal Church's Greatest Hits. But before I do that, let me go ahead and give you a little quick breakdown of what Metal Church has done in their career. They have 12 studio albums, 3 live albums, 1 compilation, which that compilation is more like a studio album because it contains a bunch of leftovers and B-sides from the Damned If You Do album, which was the last album with Mike Howe. It also has some live tracks, some covers, and oddly enough, bonus tracks, which I don't know how you can sit there and say those are bonus tracks if they're part of the album. I never understood that.
Yeah.
So
there was a while where it was more of a marketing thing to say things were bonus tracks, etc.
Right. And so Metal Church has had a bunch of lineup changes. We've talked about that right now with the vocalists. David Wayne was their first singer, and he appeared on 3 albums. The first 2, and then the reunion album Masterpiece. Mike Howe was on 5 albums, along with the From the Vault compilation, and Ronnie Monroe on 4. And one other thing to note John Marshall was their guitar player at one point, and if anybody out there knows who John Marshall is, he is the 6'7" guitar player from Seattle who actually filled in for James Hetfield on 2 different occasions when James Hetfield injured himself. The first occasion was when he broke his arm during the Master of Puppets tour, and the second occasion is when he burned himself. When James burned himself during the Guns N' Roses Metallica tour in 1992.
Okay.
Yeah, so John's pretty cool. He's a good guitar player. But anyhow, let's move on with this. Let's get going with this these 15 songs. All right, so I did all the firsts last week, so you get to do all the firsts this week.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Right. So, as we traditionally do this, I'm not going in any particular order other than chronological. We'll eventually put this into concert set list order, like we usually do. But starting off with my number 1 is Beyond the Black. And then I've got Gods of Wrath and Battalions, all from the first Metal Church album, the self-titled. I've got Ton of Bricks from The Dark. Fake Healer and Badlands from Blessing in Disguise, In Mourning and In Harm's Way from The Human Factor, Gods of a Second Chance and Waiting for a Savior from Hanging in the Balance. I've got Sunless Sky from The Weight of the World. I've got Reset, No Tomorrow, and Signal Path from 11, and The Black Things from Damned If You Do.
All right, well, that there is definitely some crossover there. I'm pretty surprised with your list. I like it though. My list is slightly different, but there's some similarities in some places. Some similarities in places I didn't think there was going to be any similarities, really. But
okay, it's always a surprise when we think that the other's not gonna like the same things, and then we end up, on the same page.
Right. Okay, so let's read off my 15. Okay, and it's basically in chronological order. So number 1 for me is Metal Church from the Metal Church album. Number 2, Gods of Wrath from Metal Church. Number 3, Tons of Bricks from The Dark, and Start the Fire is number 4 from The Dark. Number 5, Watch the Children Pray from The Dark. And number 6, Fake Healer. Number 7, Badlands, both off of Blessing in Disguise. Number 8 and number 9, Human Factor and In Harm's Way from The Human Factor. Number 10, No Friend of Mine from Hanging in the Balance. Number 11, Blinded by Life from A Light in the Dark. Number 12, Breathe Again from This Present Wasteland. Number 13, Generation Nothing from the Generation Nothing album. Number 14, For No Reason from The Vault. And number 15, Conductor Redo from The Vault. I had nothing from 11 and Damned If You Do, because I thought that the 2 songs that I picked from, and this is my opinion, that I picked from The Vault, and actually several songs from The Vault, were better than the things that they put out on 11 and Damned If You Do. But that's just my opinion.
That's fair. I actually ended up really liking 11. I thought that was one of their better albums, to be honest.
I think so, too. I mean, it was one of these things where I didn't feel, because I was running out of things, because I found some other songs in the middle from the Ronnie Monroe era that I thought were pretty good. And then I was like, I'm running out of space for this second Mike Howe era. And then I realized that the stuff, well, for me at least, the stuff from The Vault, I actually thought was better. And their redo of Conductor, to me, is a much better version than what came out on Hanging in the Balance.
Okay.
Oh wow, we got a fight tonight.
Yep.
Oh, I know one song I know I'm going to keep already. I have one song. The rest of them are up for grabs.
Okay.
Okay, well, now we're at the point where we have to decide which 15 songs. We have 5 songs that crossed over, so we actually have 10 places. So this is going to go on for a couple of rounds here, but the way it's going to work, if you haven't listened before, or if you're new to this, we're basically, our first round, we are going to pick one song from our own list that we want to keep. Round 2 is we're going to drop a song from our own list that we're okay with getting rid of. Then round 3, we're going to pick a song from each other's list to keep. And in round 4, we're going to pick a song from each other's list to drop. And in round 5, 6, 7, and 8, we start all over again until we fill everything up. So we have 10 to fill. So there you go. You get to go first in the song you want to keep.
Okay. This might be tough, because we usually don't have this small amount of crossover. It makes it more imperative to pick the songs that you really want, because there's a high chance that they can get dropped, right?
Yeah, as evidenced by Alter Bridge not having their biggest hit single on our greatest hits.
I still laugh at that one.
That's why I have to continue to say it, because it's just so funny. It's happened other times, but it wasn't as dramatic as that one was for me.
Yeah, for real, yeah. Let's see. I don't have much. I only had one song from the Ronnie Monroe era. And it's a really good one. Like, honestly, I think Sunless Sky, of all the songs of that era that I heard, was really good. One that I picked up on immediately. Just the guitar work is really awesome. It's a little bit slower track, and I think it kind of fits the whole vibe. And to me, being the only song that I picked from that era, I think represented it very well. So I'm gonna pick Sunless Sky.
Okay, Sunless Sky, you pick. All right. Well, for me, I have to pick the song, because this is one of my songs that's really up there for me, and it is the self-titled track Metal Church from their self-titled debut. So that's what I'm picking.
Okay.
Now, from here on in, I don't really care what comes and goes, but
it was just that one song you had to have on your list.
Yeah, I had, and it was funny because I was afraid, like there was a point where when we were talking, and you kept mentioning to me that you weren't into that first album that much, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to pick Gods of Wrath, because I want the Gods of Wrath, because that's really up there for me as well.
That was also my mistake in saying, because I mixed up the first two albums, if you'll remember our conversation. Obviously, the listeners can't, hear the earlier conversation, but I'm like I said, I'm not super familiar with Metal Church. I remember hearing them. There was certain songs I liked. I've always really liked Human Factor. I think regarding one episode we had a long time ago, I think we talked about Human Factor for something, and I that was one that stuck out to me mainly because I saw the music videos from that album. But yeah, like I kind of mixed up the first two albums, thinking that The Dark came first. I don't know why. It would make sense that the self-titled debut would probably be first, right? So, all right. So I got to pick one to drop, huh? I think I'm probably going to pick something off of 11 to drop. I'm going to drop No Tomorrow.
Okay.
And hope that one of the others makes it on.
I'm pretty sure one of the others will make it on. Okay, from my list to drop, I think I'm leaving some of the later stuff to keep on there to see how it plays out. But I'm going to go ahead and drop "Start the Fire" from The Dark. But we kind of mentioned it earlier when we were talking about it. That's kind of like one of those songs where it's almost too groovy and too poppy-ish for what Metal Church was like.
Yeah, to me it didn't fit very well. Honestly, The Dark was an album that when listening to it for this, over the last week, I didn't really vibe with it too much because it felt more like they were trying to be a bit more commercial than they were on the first album. And I don't know, it didn't appeal to me. So what was the big single off of The Dark?
Watch the Children Pray.
Didn't like that song. I tried. I listened to it multiple times.
As evidenced by it not being on your list.
Yeah, but there was other songs that I liked that I had a hard time, kind of. I had to cut this one down because I had about 20 songs on there that I thought, could be on the list. But, so all right. So I guess it is my time to pick one of your songs.
Yes, one of my songs to keep.
So, between the ones that you have, the one that immediately stuck out to me from your list was Human Factor. So, I think that's the one I'm going to pick. I do like Conductor. That album, as you said, I really feel it's underrated. But I think we'll have more opportunities to put that on. Like I said, immediately Human Factor stuck out to me, so I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, that sounds good. I have no problem with that since it was obviously on my list.
Since it was on your list.
All right. And similarly, you have a song on your list that stuck out to me that I kind of was going to put on, and I'm like, oh, crap, I'm running out of room here. So, and the running out of room came about that I realized that there were a lot more songs that I liked from the later time period, the Ronnie Monroe and the second Mike Howe period, that I'm like, oh, I really just did Metal Church a disservice, or myself a disservice for not listening to these songs. But I had to keep some of those older songs on there that filled up a lot of space. So the one that stuck out to me is one that I was listening to earlier that I was like, you know what? I think this is going to be one of those that I want to keep on there. And it's The Gods of Second Chance.
Oh, it got a second chance to make it on the list.
It did. It did.
I do really like that song. I think it's one of the stronger songs on that album. Obviously, since I picked it. But it's a really cool track. Just kind of surprised me as maybe, up there towards the top of the songs that I like from the band. So,
all right. Well, now it's time for you to pick a song from my list that you want to kill.
All right. So, I'm not going to drop Conductor. I can tell you that right off the bat. At the time being, not going to drop Generation Nothing. I think it's a decent song. Maybe kind of from that era that some of the songs come off as being a little bit overly edgy, but I'm still okay with it. I think Blinded by Life is a really good track. That was one that was in my 20 tracks, so I'm gonna keep that on there at least. You're
telling me all the songs that I got to sit there and try and save when it comes time.
Basically. So I don't know how you feel about this song. Obviously, I mean, you had it on your list, but like I said earlier, I don't like it. I'm gonna have to drop Watch the Children Pray.
I knew you would pick that one. I knew it.
I know it's one of their bigger hits, but I don't. Maybe it's one of those time contextual things.
No, it's exactly. I mean, as I mentioned to you earlier, when you told me that you didn't really like the song too much, it's really a song that was designed. You said it yourself. The album felt more commercial, and it totally was a song that they put in there, a ballad that it needed to be something that would attract people to buy the album.
Yeah.
Right. Now, it was a hit for them. And even then, they went ahead and re-recorded it in 2006 with Ronnie Monroe singing. So, and it's not a bad version, but again, it's a little drier. It's got more of the modern production that Kurt Vanderhoof likes to use.
Okay.
So it's much different than the version, I guess, much different sounding than the version that is on the Dark. But I get it. I'm like I said, I'm not heartbroken by it. I did like the song, or I do like the song, but not heartbroken by the fact that we're dropping it.
Okay. I that makes me happy because I do tend to like the more metal sounding songs from them, and I'm not saying that one's not. It's just not. I think they have a lot better stuff, even though that's a big hit.
Well, they didn't do too many ballads at all.
Yeah.
So that's the other issue too. That it's like sitting there saying, in when Slayer released South of Heaven, there was like one slow song. And when I say slow song, we're talking like a ballad. You would never have thought that Slayer would do that, but you could tell that they're trying to be commercial if they did. Sort of like what they did when they tried to be, nu metal. But at the same time, trying to be nu metal, they were still at least Slayer. But no, Metal Church just wasn't a ballad kind of band. Never have been.
Sometimes I forget that Slayer has those albums. Like I
time
just
of
kind
life,
of live
you just want to disappear.
I just live in that pocket of the the early albums, and I forget that they released some really bad ones.
Yeah, I know.
Diabolus in Music, I'm looking at you.
All right, I got to drop a song off your list.
All right.
Okie dokie, Smokey. We've got a couple of songs from this album already, so I think we're going to have to drop this one song. At first I thought, maybe I'll keep it. People like it, but we've already got 2 songs from this album, so I don't think we can have 3. So I'm dropping In Mourning.
Okay. I'll take that one, being that we put Human Factor up there. I do prefer In Mourning a bit, but at the same time, it doesn't break my heart either way.
Yeah, me personally, I had to take Date with Poverty off the list.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a really good album.
It is. It's a very good album that did not get a lot of promotion by Sony. So, that's the one thing that I didn't understand. You're going to sign a band, and then you just don't put any promotion behind it. It was very little promotion whatsoever. I'm like, it was strong, but as you and I have talked about the style of lyrics in some cases, that because he goes back and forth, Mike Howe, the style of lyrics that the first few songs on Human Factor are storytelling, and it's long sentences and stuff like that, and it's different. Like Date with Poverty is definitely one of those kinds of songs, but there's a goofy factor to it, because at the end he starts saying these jokes, because I'm so broke, I can't even afford to pay attention. It's like, we've heard that joke a million times, maybe not so much a million times in 1992, but it's one of those, it was unnecessary.
You're right in that that description, but there's also a factor of, some of these record companies, especially back then, man, they really think people are stupid. And people are stupid. Don't get me wrong, people are real stupid. But they don't think people can listen to something that is more complicated, that is more interesting. They just want that instant hit, that what will pop into your brain. But there are songs like One from Metallica. I think we always have to throw in at least one Metallica reference per episode, right? But like songs
that's
One,
in my contract.
that will and I use them as an example because they are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, metal band in the world, right? So that song, I think most people know that are into metal at all. I mean, I would say people that I've known that aren't metalheads know that song. So it's not impossible that a song that doesn't just have like one hook that people go back to can catch on, that a story can be told. And I think record companies screwed over so many bands that wanted to do something beyond Unskinny Bob, you know.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing too, so I don't know if it was these professional decisions that they make, because you talk about Elektra Records had Blessing in Disguise. Blessing in Disguise had Badlands. It was a pretty decent song on MTV for them, but I don't think that it didn't blow the doors off of the record sales. And that, if you listen to it really carefully, is a very proggy kind of album for them. It's advanced metal for that time period. And then all of a sudden they're probably told, hey, you got to dumb it down a little bit. And so they got dropped and picked up by Sony and still dumbed down. The Human Factor comes out, which is really straightforward, right? And you could tell it's not what was on Blessing in Disguise, but yet at the same time, it was still a very good album. So I don't know what the record company was expecting at that point. But regardless, so we dropped In Mourning, and so now it's your turn to pick a song off of your list. To keep from your list.
Yes. Okay. This is a tough one, because there's two songs that I'd like to keep. But in order for me to get one on from 11, I'm going to go with Signal Path. That was a song that instantly stuck out to me. Really like the groove to it. It's almost jazzy at moments. Just one that I really like. It's one you can just put on and headbang to. I think it's always just based on the timeline of when it came out. I think it's always going to be one maybe that's overlooked, but maybe this will give some of you a chance to hone in on it and listen to it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I listened to it earlier. I mean, it's a good album, but what to me was, there was nothing so outstanding for me from either one of those albums, because they're all kind of really good, but they're not necessarily good enough to say that they're greatest hits. That was just the way I looked at it. It's kind of weird. But then when I started listening to From the Vault, I'm like, whoa, this song's better to me, And so I was like, oh, I got to pick this one. But that was that. So
fair enough.
All right. So now it's my turn to pick a song off my list I want to keep. So since you threw out 3 big hints at me, also one song that you're on the fence for, that I really, really like. Because we're going to get down to making some tough decisions pretty soon.
Yeah, we got 5 slots left right now.
We got 5 slots left. And it's up. I for a second there, I had the song. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go straight for this song. And then I thought, oh wait, but I want this other song. Maybe. So, no, we're going to go back to my original thought. I'm keeping Generation Nothing. Sorry.
All right.
So Generation Nothing, when I first heard it, I mean, it immediately was attracted to the song. And I don't know what happened, because I knew Mike Howe was not in the picture at that time.
Yeah.
But I have no idea how it is now that I go back and listen to it. I continue to think that it's Mike Howe singing, Because
it doesn't
close.
really sound like him. But yeah, they have similar range. They have similar styles. But it doesn't sound directly like him, but it's not a difference like Bon Scott and Brian Johnson. So.
No, I mean, they both have a similar kind of way of singing that kind of comes across very similar. And sometimes Ronnie would sing in a little higher register, which was closer to Mike's.
Yeah.
And Mike rarely sang in a lower register. So when I first started listening to Generation Nothing again to do the research for this, I started thinking, man, Mike's really singing low. The first couple songs. And then, I got to Generation Nothing. I'm, oh yeah, this is a song. And then I'm like, oh shit, this is not Mike.
That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. So now it is time for you to pick a song off your own list to drop.
All right. One song to drop. Let's see. Man, that's a tough one, but I think I'm going to go with Beyond the Black. It's a cool song, really cool intro. But there's a couple that I'd prefer make it on if they get the chance.
I was looking at that same song for you to drop too. Okay, so now I got to drop a song off of my list that I'm willing to give away.
Okay.
We have one song from Hanging in the Balance, but we have other songs from Hanging in the Balance that are not necessarily from Hanging in the Balance, and I'm talking about Conductor, but I also have a song called No Friend of Mine on my list that's from Hanging in the Balance. So, for right now, I'm stuck here with what song I want to pick, but I'm going to go ahead and drop For No Reason from The Vault. It hurts me because I really think that those first bunch of songs that are on there are really good. But there's other songs that I think I want to keep more.
Okay. All right. So we are at me picking one from your list.
Yes, that you want to keep.
All of the ones you have left, I think, are really good. I have to go with my first instinct, right? Let's go with Conductor off of Hanging in the Balance. It's a good track.
You're keeping that one, right?
I am keeping Conductor.
All right, so we're at 7 songs now. So I have to pick a song off your list I'm going to keep. I'm going to go ahead and keep Reset.
Okay. That's a really cool intro track.
Yes. So now we have chosen 8 songs. We have 2 spots left. We have 6 songs to go. So the next round, we're dropping songs off of each other's list, right? And then after that, it's the last 2 songs that we pick will automatically drop 2 others. So now we're dropping 2 songs off each other's list. Your turn.
2 songs?
No,
we're just one song, right?
It's one song each. Yeah,
I gotcha. I was like, I didn't know that's how we were playing this. Okay.
No.
Man, dropping a song off of your list because you have some good choices, honestly. But
see, this one hurts. This one's gonna hurt.
Blinded by Life is really cool. I just don't like the vocals all that much. I don't know what it is about what he's doing on this particular song, but there are times where he sounds great, and then there are other times where he sounds almost like he's trying to be like a cave troll or something.
Is this a song where he sounds like he cracks a couple times?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I remember that from earlier because I thought the same thing. It's like, oh, this is a really cool riff, but what's with the crack? Almost like a crack. He wasn't completely. Okay.
Now, Breathe Again, I think, is really good. I that was one that I kind of overlooked, but I do like that song. I think it's perfectly valid to make the list. No Friend of Mine. Man, we do have a lot of stuff from Hanging in the Balance already. And as much as I think like that intro's kind of cool, I think the other songs we've picked I like better. So I think I'm dropping one from your list. I'm going to drop Blinded by Life for now.
Good, okay. All right, well, I already know which song I want to drop off of yours, so we're going to go straight to it. We're dropping Battalions because we don't need anything else from the early albums.
Okay. I think it's a really cool track. It's like super fast, almost Iron Maiden-esque.
Oh, it's a great song.
Yeah.
Right? But we have already two songs from that album, and we have two songs from from the Dark, or one song from the Dark. We have two songs from Blessing in Disguise. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, all right, we need to not have so much from the beginning.
I gotcha.
All right, so now it's your turn. All right, so no, actually, now this is where we get down to business. We're picking a song each from our own list, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that automatically eliminates the other song from our list.
Right. So it's we're picking a song to keep, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this one's a tough one because, all right, so you have Waiting for a Savior and The Black Things. I kind of know which way you should go, but that's just me personally. And then I have No Friend of Mine and Breathe Again. Two songs I really dig. So what is your choice, Senor?
Honestly, I'm gonna pick The Black Things off of Damned If You Do. I really like that track. It is some of the best guitar work that I've heard from the band, period, honestly. Because I liked a couple other tracks from that album, and I had picked a different track, and then I heard this one, and I said, nope, that's the one that's going on there. So I'm glad it made the list.
And I was glad because Waiting for a Savior, it was just like, all right, we've got enough of this already.
Yeah.
So now I got to pick between No Friend of Mine and Breathe Again. All right. So by me choosing this next song, that means that the other song goes goodbye. It breaks my heart because I really kind of enjoy the song, even though I just became friends with it today. I'm going to go ahead and pick Breathe Again from This Present Wasteland to drop No Friend of Mine.
Okay. I think that would be the one I would pick as well. So that works out very nicely.
Well, we have chosen our 15 songs. And Chris, why don't you go ahead and read them off?
All right. So going in chronological order, we've got Metal Church and Gods of Wrath from the Metal Church album. Ton of Bricks from The Dark. Fake Healer and Badlands from Blessing in Disguise. The Human Factor and In Harm's Way from The Human Factor. Gods of a Second Chance and Conductor from Hanging in the Balance. Sunless Sky from The Weight of the World. Breathe Again from This Present Wasteland. Generation Nothing from Generation Nothing. We've got Reset and Signal Path from 11. And The Black Things from Damned If You Do.
Now, the Conductor version that I'm talking about is the one that comes off of From the Vault, which is it's a complete different re-recording. So
okay, gotcha.
So it kind of helps that technically on the listing balance, but that's okay. Don't worry. Okay, so now we have to put it into concert set list order. So the way that works, for those of you who are new, we chose our 15 songs. We're going to break it down into songs 1 through 12 are the main set. And then songs 13, 14, and 15 are the encore. So we're going to choose it that way, to basically the way you would like to hear it if you were at a concert. So I went first last week. So this time it's your turn to go first.
Okay. I'm going to start off with an intro track, and I think Reset is the one I'm going to pick.
Okay. Reset. Sounds good. I don't have a problem with that one. I actually think it's a pretty good song to start off with. I mean, there was another one I was looking at, but I was like, we'll let that one go for now.
All right.
Okay. God, these are all kind of similarly paced. It's like it's one straight pace. It's like it's all 180 BPM throughout the entire concert.
It is a bit that way.
Except for a couple of songs.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I can't go wrong pretty much with any song at this point. How about the human factor?
Okay. I mean, there's a couple that, yeah, you probably couldn't go wrong with, but like, there's a couple I'd like to keep towards the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then there's one I definitely see as kind of fitting in the middle. But we'll see how it goes.
All right. Number 3.
All right. Let's do something from the earlier time period. How about Gods of Wrath? You think that's too early?
Well, yeah, I think that's too early. I mean, I don't want to throw a veto in. I don't want to sway you one way or the other. I don't think I would veto it, but I think it's too early.
Okay.
But if you want to go with it, then we'll go with it.
I mean, you can use a veto. Pick something that you think fits better there.
What about? I mean, we can keep it in the same time area. Why don't we keep? What about Ton of Bricks?
Okay, that's fine. Use your veto to.
So I've officially used my veto to keep Gods of Wrath later. We're going to go ahead and put Ton of Bricks. So does that mean you get to pick again?
Yeah. That's the way we've done it in the past. It's been a while since we've really ever used a veto, but that was basically how we did it. All right, then. How about we slow it down a little bit? We do Sunless Sky.
Okay, that works for me. So with that said, what do you think if we're quote unquote picking the pace back up? What about Fake Healer?
Sure. That'll work.
Okay. Did you happen to catch or hear the Fake Healer with Todd LaTorre on it?
I did not. I'll have to listen to that.
They re-recorded that one 2017, and I think Todd is alternating verses with Mike.
Okay, that's cool. Well, let's see. I guess let's keep the pace going. In fact, maybe a little faster with Conductor.
I like that there. That definitely works. Kicking up the pace there from that. Because Fake Healer is kind of like a little bit of a plotter at points.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Conductor. Now, we're hitting that middle spot. We got a lot of middle songs to me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You want to do Generation Nothing here?
That's honestly what I was thinking.
I keep doing that.
Yeah. Let's do Signal Path.
Okay, that works for me. What do you think about the Black Things?
I kind of want to, because of the way the song's structured, I kind of want to put that more towards the end of the main set, if you're okay with that.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit, I feel like it leads into whatever would be like kind of the closer in my mind. The closer of the main set, right? So I guess.
Are you using a veto?
I am.
He's using a veto, folks.
Okay. I'm thinking Gods of a Second Chance.
Okay, I can live with that. All right, so then how about here in this spot we throw in Breathe Again?
Okay. And then here we'll do the Black Things. So that leaves us with Metal Church, Gods of Wrath, Badlands, and In Harm's Way to select from.
Okay, so with this one, we're at the end of the main set, so we have a couple of choices here. I like two songs for this spot, but the same other song would be, in my opinion, would be the final spot.
Okay.
So the final spot is your choice. So I'm looking at what I feel good about would be. Oh no, actually, no. Think about it. Let's say, okay, how about we can either Gods of Wrath or Badlands?
I'll say Gods of Wrath.
Okay. I'm good with Gods of Wrath there.
All right, so for the encore intro, I'm thinking In Harm's Way.
Okay.
It starts off kind of slow. So, if, the lights are out, they come out, start.
Right.
Yeah.
And then for me, it would be Badlands.
Yes, and then Metal Church.
Yep. Metal Church. Love that song. All right. We have our 15 songs in concert set list order. All right. So I get to read this one off. Song number 1, Reset. Number 2, The Human Factor. It just rolls right into Ton of Bricks. Song number 4 would be Sunless Sky. Number 5 would be Fake Healer, followed by Conductor Redo. And then number 7, Generation Nothing, followed by Signal Path at 8. Number 9 will be Gods of Second Chance. 10, Breathe Again. Number 11, The Black Things. And closing out the main set would be Gods of Wrath. And then the encore, we started off with In Harm's Way. Number 14 is Badlands. And then we finish off the show with the ever so maniacal Metal Church song, Metal Church. I love that song. That song's great. The drumming on it, Kirk Arrington just went nuts on that song, playing drums.
Yeah, it was one I kind of debated putting on the list, and I guess I'm pretty glad it made it. So,
yeah, because you didn't put it on your list, but it ended up being the last song of the concert.
Yeah,
it's cool. All right, well, that's our 15 Metal Church greatest hits. So that leads us to what we are going to pick as our big 4 Metal Church songs. So I believe it's my turn to go first, but I don't know. Is it yours or mine?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I'll go first. Okay, so this one, my songs, I got one newish song, and then the rest of them are old. So here we go. We talked about it. I know it wasn't one of your favorite songs, but it really attracted me as soon as I heard it. Oddly enough, it's not Mike Howe singing. It's Ronnie Monroe with Generation Nothing. That's my number 4.
I mean, I don't dislike it, but
no, I know. It's just so funny because it's one of these songs that's like, I know there's something about it that doesn't hit you.
Yeah.
like other songs do, which is fine. Number 3 for me is Badlands off of Blessing in Disguise. The first time I heard it, it has that. It's a very haunting song, and that's really what I like about it. I mean, that whole album has haunting tracks throughout it, and that's what attracts me to that album. It's really cool, very progressive in a lot of cases. Fake Healer is a cool song. Anthem of the Strange is just literally an epic tune, and then there's also Rest in Peace is the story about the Titanic, which that one is really interesting to listen to. So anyhow, number 2, Gods of Wrath. That right up there was like the epitome to me of hitting the high note, sort of like The Ripper and Victim of Changes is with Rob Halford, right? This one, Gods of Wrath, it just hits that high note several times. I love the song. I actually have a demo version of it somewhere. And then number 1 for me, we talked about it. It's the show closer, Metal Church. Kirk Arrington playing some crazy, insane drums on this album. I love to air drum to this song. Kirk Arrington playing some crazy drums on this song. I love to play air drums to the track myself. So Metal Church, my number 1.
Very cool. So my list is going to be quite a bit different from yours.
No, it has to be the same.
All right.
Go on.
All right. That's it for the show today. Okay. So my number 4, I mentioned I really like this track. The Black Things off of Damned If You Do. If you didn't really give that one much of a listen, go ahead and give it another listen because it it really has some amazing guitar work, and I was very impressed by the track. So my number three. I'm just skipping number three for some reason. My number three is actually going to be one that didn't even make it on our list. Is Battalions off of Metal Church. I just really liked it. Felt like it, like I said, it was a quite a bit like Iron Maiden in sound, and it stuck out to me for that reason. It kind of had that old new wave of British heavy metal kind of vibe to it. My number two is Fake Healer off of Blessing in Disguise. Really like this track a lot. I can imagine, a lot of times when there's a new singer with a band, and maybe this is the first thing you heard, depending on what the airplay was, etc., or maybe you're stepping into it knowing that this is a new version of the band. Well, I would imagine this probably gave a lot of people like that assurance that things were okay. So, and my number one is Badlands off of Blessing in Disguise as well. Really, really like this track. I think it's one of the better ones I heard, and one that I will continue to listen to because I really do like this track.
And Badlands was also re-recorded by it was released as a single in 2015. It was actually, that was the first thing that Mike did when he came back into the band. They re-recorded that song and put it out as a single.
Gotcha.
So that was pretty cool. I was listening to it earlier because I say single, but it's a Spotify single, so it's not like it doesn't even show up on their singles list. It's on Wikipedia page, but it's a really cool version. And much drier. So the original one's much more haunting, but I think the original is better personally, but this still is a good version. One thing I got to say, we kind of touched upon it earlier. Kurt Vanderhoof is an amazing producer. He produces all this stuff for them now, and he gets some really good sounds. I mean, he has some really good guitar tones. His drums sound modern, but they still sound fresh. They don't sound muddied like some of the new modern stuff sounds. Yes, I'm looking at you, Andy Sneap. But I like the way Kurt records all the instruments, and he has, for someone like Metallica who loves to put dry stuff out, Greg Fiddleman does a good job of interpreting what Metallica wants and puts it out. And Kurt is like right on it. I keep saying Kurt. It's Kurt. Kurt really is right on the pulse of production today for me personally. So
awesome.
I don't know.
Anyway. I know we both kind of get on Andy Sneap for some of the stuff he does, but it's love-hate, right? I really appreciate what Andy does, but at the same time sometimes I'm like, man, why does all the drums sound the same for every band?
And what's funny is like it didn't start out that way with Andy's production because he did the first reunion album, Blood of the Nations, and it doesn't sound that way.
Yeah,
but it's gotten more and more to sound very similar nowadays. Like I would say the 2020s.
Yeah.
And maybe the 2019. Since then, around there, everything's kind of sounded a little muddied. But hey, you know what? Andy's doing it, and that's all that matters. And that's the good thing. But Andy's a great guitar player. They wouldn't have asked him to fill in for Glenn Tipton if he wasn't. All right. So he has a great idea of how to get good guitar tones because Accept's guitar sound is so unique and it's so good, and he was able to get that out of them, and he's done that with these last 4 albums that they've put out, 4 or 5 I think, and so I can't take that away from him. I just don't like some of his drumming. That's about it. Not drumming, but the drum recording,
the way it's recorded.
Yeah. So all right, well, that's our big 4 Metal Church songs, and that brings to a close this episode of Debating Metal. And if you like what you heard today, you can go back and download all of our old episodes on your favorite podcast platforms. And while you're there, click like, subscribe, or whatever it is that you have to click, and you'll get a new episode from us about every week or so.
And don't forget to leave us a comment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or send us an email to debatingmetal@gmail.com. YouTube viewers, click subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when we post a new episode. So remember to tune in next week as we spark up another exciting metal debate. On behalf of Kenneth and myself, stay safe and always turn it up to 11.
See ya.